Every night, Marcus balanced his ledger. And every night, something did not add up. The market never truly slept. Even when the clock pushed past midnight and the crowd thinned into scattered footsteps and tired voices, Kingston's night market still breathed. Smoke rose from charcoal drums in slow, curling waves. Oil snapped in metal pans. Music drifted from a distant speaker, warped and heavy with bass. The air carried everything at once: heat, spice, sweat, movement, survival. Marcus stood behind his stall like a man holding his ground in a storm that never passed. He had been there since late afternoon. Now it was close to 1 in the morning, and still he worked. 2 chicken, 1 bread, pepper on the side, a customer said. Marcus nodded, already moving. His hands were fast, precise, practiced. He flipped the chicken, pressed it down just enough to release the juices, reached for the bread without looking, wrapped it, handed it over, took the money, counted it instantly, and slipped it into the small metal box beside him. No hesitation, no waste, everything calculated. Because for Marcus, this was not just business, this was survival. Every dollar mattered, every coin had a purpose, every night had to make sense. That was why the ledger existed. It was not fancy, just a worn notebook with bent edges and pages stained by grease and time. But it was the most important thing Marcus owned, because it told the truth. Or at least, it was supposed to. Around 2 in the morning, the last of the heavy crowd faded. The energy shifted. The noise softened. The market became something else, quieter, slower, but not empty, never empty. Marcus wiped his hands on a cloth, closed the lid of the food container, and sat down on the small wooden stool behind his stall. His body ached. His shoulders burned, but he ignored it. He reached for the metal box, opened it, and began to count. This was his ritual every night, no matter how tired he was, no matter how late it got. Count, record, confirm. He stacked the bills, separated them, added the coins, then opened the ledger. The pages were filled with numbers, dates, small notes in the margins. Everything recorded, everything tracked, because Marcus did not trust chance. He trusted numbers. Numbers did not lie, or at least that was what he believed. He began writing sales for the night, expenses, remaining cash. He double-checked the totals, then checked again, then stopped. His hand froze slightly above the page. Something was wrong. He looked at the numbers again, carefully, slowly. He had done this too many times to make simple mistakes, but still, it did not add up. He frowned, counted the money again, once, twice, 3 times. Same result. Less than it should be, but enough to matter. Marcus leaned back slightly, exhaled. "It must be a mistake," he muttered. But the words did not sit right, because this had happened before. Not once, not twice, several times. Always small, always just enough to question, never enough to explain. He flipped back a few pages, checked previous nights. Same pattern. Something missing. Not every night, but often enough. A quiet subtraction, unnoticed unless you were looking closely. And Marcus always looked closely. He closed the ledger slowly. The noise of the market continued around him, but something inside him had gone still. He did not like things he could not explain, and this was becoming something else. A man from the next stall leaned over slightly. "You closing?" Marcus nodded. "Yeah." "You staying too late every night," the man said casually. "Money not worth losing sleep." Marcus gave a small smile. "If I don't count it, I don't keep it."
The man laughed lightly and turned away. Marcus did not. He packed slowly, carefully, then slipped the ledger into his bag. He stood for a moment, looking out over the market. Something felt off, not obvious, not visible, but present, like a weight sitting just beneath the surface of everything. He shook it off, lifted his bag, and walked away. The next night, he came back earlier than usual, determined, focused. If something was wrong, he would find it. The market greeted him the same way it always did. Noise, heat, movement. Nothing unusual, nothing different. But Marcus was not the same. He watched more closely, counted more carefully, tracked everything, every sale, every exchange of money. No distractions, no gaps, no mistakes. And yet, when the night ended, it happened again. The numbers did not match. This time, he did not speak. He did not question. He simply stared at the page, then slowly turned it. And that was when he saw it. A number written in the margin, not in his handwriting, not in ink he recognized, and not there before. Marcus felt a coldness move through him, slow, deliberate. He stared at it, tried to remember if he had written it, tried to justify it, but deep down, he already knew he had not. The market noise faded slightly in his ears, not because it stopped, but because his focus had narrowed. Something was happening, something he did not understand. He closed the ledger, then opened it again. The number was still there. He ran his finger across it. Dry ink, real, intentional. Marcus slowly turned another page. Nothing. Another. Nothing. Then one more, and this time his breath stopped, because written clearly across the page was a name. Not a customer, not a supplier, not anyone he had recorded. A name that did not belong there. A name that felt wrong. Marcus stared at it. The air around him felt heavier, thicker, as if something unseen had just stepped closer. He looked up. The market was still moving, still alive, still normal, but for the first time, it did not feel safe. He looked back down at the ledger, at the name, and a quiet thought entered his mind. Not loud, not forced, just present. This is not a mistake. Marcus closed the book slowly, but the feeling did not leave. It followed him, through the noise, through the smoke, through the narrow paths of the market, and into the night beyond. Because whatever had written that name had not made an error. It had made a beginning.
The name in the ledger wasn't a mistake. It was a warning. Marcus did not sleep that night. He lay on his back, staring at the ceiling, the faint glow of the streetlight outside cutting across the room in thin, broken lines. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw it again. The name, written clearly, deliberately, as if it had always belonged there. He turned onto his side, then onto his back again. Sleep never came. By morning, the exhaustion sat heavy in his bones, but something else had taken its place. A quiet unease. Not panic, not yet, but something deeper. Something that told him this was not something he could ignore. He got up before sunrise, not out of routine, out of necessity. The ledger sat where he had left it, closed, still, but it did not feel harmless anymore. He walked over to it slowly, opened it, turned the page. The name was still there, unchanged, unfaded, real. Marcus exhaled slowly. This was not a mistake. And if it was not a mistake, then it meant something. That thought followed him all the way back to the market. The day felt normal, too normal. The sun rose, the vendors set up, the usual noise returned, but Marcus was not part of it, not fully.
He moved through his routine, setting up his stall, lighting the charcoal, preparing the food, greeting customers, but his attention was elsewhere, watching, listening, searching for something he could not yet define. By midday, he had already asked 3 people about the name. Each reaction was the same: a pause, a change in expression, then dismissal. "I don't know that name," or worse, silence. One man he had known for years refused to even look at him after hearing it. Another packed up early and left without explanation. Marcus stood still after that, the noise of the market continuing around him, but now it felt distant, disconnected, as if he had stepped slightly outside of it. Something was wrong, and the people here knew it. They just were not willing to say it. That evening, the air felt heavier, not physically, but in a way Marcus could not explain, the kind of weight you feel before a storm, even when the sky is clear. He worked through the evening crowd without speaking much, his movements automatic, his mind elsewhere, watching faces, looking for reactions, looking for signs. That was when he noticed her. She sat further down the market than usual, older, quiet, selling herbs, roots, small bundles tied with string. She had always been there, but never like this, never watching him. Not directly, but enough. Marcus hesitated, then made a decision. He walked over, slowly, carefully. She did not look up immediately, but when she did, her eyes held something that made him stop. Recognition. Not of who he was now, but of something deeper. "You found it," she said. Her voice was calm, certain. Marcus felt a chill run through him. "What are you talking about?" She tilted her head slightly. "The name." The word landed heavily. Marcus stared at her. "How do you know about that?" She gave a small, tired smile. "Because you are not the first." The market noise faded again, not because it stopped, but because Marcus could no longer focus on it. "What does it mean?" he asked. She looked at him carefully, as if measuring something, then spoke. "Not all debts are money." The sentence settled into him slowly. "What does that mean?" But she did not answer immediately. Instead, she leaned back slightly and studied him. "Your father used to stand where you stand." Marcus froze. "My father?" She nodded. "Long time ago." A strange feeling moved through him. Confusion, curiosity, something else. "What do you know about him?" Her expression shifted. Not fear, but caution. "He worked hard, like you." "That's all?" She hesitated, then added, "He made a choice." Marcus's chest tightened slightly. "What kind of choice?" She looked away briefly, then back at him. "The kind you don't walk away from." Silence followed, heavy, uncomfortable. Marcus felt something inside him begin to change. The confusion from before was becoming something else. Fear. What happened to him? Her eyes softened. He didn't finish what he started. The words landed slowly, then all at once. Marcus stepped back slightly, his heart beating faster now. "But what does that have to do with me?" She held his gaze. "Everything." The market noise rushed back suddenly, louder, sharper. Marcus turned away, walked back to his stall, but nothing felt the same anymore. That night, the whispers began. At first, they were faint, easy to ignore, just beneath the noise of the market, just behind the movement. He thought it was his imagination, exhaustion, stress. But then, they became clearer. Not loud, but close. Too close. He turned suddenly. No one. He continued working, trying to ignore it, but it followed him, moved with him, stayed just out of sight. Then a customer stepped forward. Same as last time, the man said. Marcus frowned. I've never seen you before. The man smiled slightly. You said that yesterday, too. Marcus felt a cold wave pass through him. I wasn't here yesterday. The man's smile didn't change. Of course you were. Then he took the food and walked away. Marcus stood still. The air felt wrong. Everything felt slightly off, as if the edges of reality had shifted just enough to notice. Later that night, he saw him, standing at the edge of the market, in the dark, not moving, not speaking, not blinking, just standing there. Then, gone, as if it had never been there at all. Marcus stepped forward, heart racing now, but there was nothing, no one, only darkness, and the feeling that he was no longer alone. By the time the night ended, he knew one thing for certain. This was not in his head. This was not stress. This was not imagination. Something had changed, and it was getting closer. He closed his stall slowly, hands unsteady now, not from exhaustion, from awareness. He sat down, opened the ledger, turned the page. The name was still there, but now there was something else, a number beside it. Marcus felt his breath catch because he knew he had not written it, and this time he did not question it. He understood, not completely, but enough. This was not tracking money. This was tracking something else, something passed down, something unfinished, something waiting. The air around him grew colder. The noise of the market faded again, and then, for the first time, he heard it clearly. Not a whisper, not distant, right beside him. You are late. Marcus froze, every part of him locked in place. The voice was not loud, but it was real, and it was close, too close. Slowly, he turned, and this time, something was there.
That night, the market stopped being a market. It did not happen all at once. There was no sound that marked the moment, no sudden darkness, no obvious break between what was real and what was not. If anything, it began with something almost unnoticeable, a slight delay between movement and meaning, a fraction of a second where the world seemed to hesitate before continuing. Marcus felt it first in his hands. He reached for a piece of bread, and for a moment it felt heavier than it should have been, as if time itself had thickened around it. The flame beneath his grill flickered in a slow, unnatural rhythm. The smoke rose, but too slowly, like it was struggling to remember how to move. He blinked. Everything returned to normal, or at least, it appeared to. He told himself it was exhaustion, too many nights, too little sleep, too much thinking about things he did not understand. But the feeling did not leave. It stayed, quiet, patient, waiting. The crowd came as it always did. Voices layered over each other. Music drifted through the air. Money changed hands. Food passed from grill to plate to palm. Everything moved. Everything lived. But something was wrong. Marcus could feel it now. Not as a thought, as a presence. He watched a woman approach his stall. She smiled, but the smile came a moment too late, as if her face had to remember how to respond. "What you have tonight?" she asked. Her voice sounded normal, but something underneath it did not. Marcus answered automatically, but as she spoke again, he noticed something else. Her eyes did not move the way they should. They stayed fixed, focused, too focused, as if she was not looking at him, but through him. She paid, took the food, walked away, and Marcus realized he had not seen her leave, not properly. One moment she was there, the next she wasn't. He looked around quickly. The crowd continued. No one reacted. No one noticed.
but Marcus did, and that was enough. Time stretched again, this time longer. A man laughed somewhere to his left, but the laugh echoed, then repeated, then faded in a way that did not match distance. Marcus turned. The man was still laughing, but his mouth had stopped moving. Marcus felt his chest tighten. He looked away quickly, back to his stall, back to the familiar. But the familiar was changing, slowly, relentlessly. The ledger sat beside him, closed, but he could feel it, like it was aware, like it was waiting. He tried to ignore it, tried to focus on work, on routine, on anything that made sense. But then he noticed the vendors, the ones he had known for years. They were there, but not the same. One man who always shouted for customers now stood silent, moving mechanically, handing out food without expression. Another woman who used to laugh constantly now smiled without sound, her mouth moving, but nothing coming out. Marcus stepped back slightly, his breathing uneven now. He looked closer, and that was when he saw it. Their eyes. Some of them were empty, not blank, empty, like something had been taken from behind them or replaced. He turned slowly, scanning the market. More of them, standing, working, existing, but not alive, not fully. The realization hit him all at once, cold, sharp, unavoidable. Some of them were not human anymore. His heart began to race, fast, loud, too loud. He stepped back again, but the ground felt wrong beneath his feet, unsteady, like it did not belong to him anymore. He turned toward the exit, the path he had walked 1,000 times, the path that always led out. He took one step, then another, but something resisted, not physically, but deeply, like the space itself was holding him in place. He stopped, tried again. Nothing changed. The market did not want him to leave. The fear that had been building finally reached its peak. Not confusion anymore, not uncertainty. Fear, real, immediate, unavoidable. He turned back, and that was when he saw her again, the old woman, standing closer now, watching him. This time, she did not wait. "You see it now," she said. Marcus shook his head slightly. "This is not real." She did not argue. "Real is not the question," she replied. "What you are part of is." The words cut through him. "What is happening?" he asked. Her expression grew heavier. "The market doesn't just sell food," she said quietly. "It collects." Marcus felt his stomach tighten. "Collects what?" She looked at him, long, carefully. "Debt." The word echoed, not in the air, inside him. Marcus stepped back again. "My father." She nodded before he could finish. "Yes." His chest tightened further. "What did he do?" Her voice lowered. "He took something." "What?" She shook her head slowly. "That part doesn't matter anymore." Marcus's frustration broke through his fear. "It matters to me." Her eyes softened slightly. "Then understand this," she said. "He made a deal." The words hit harder than anything else. He was not supposed to leave with what he took. Marcus's breathing slowed, not from calm, from shock. But he did, and he never paid. Silence followed, heavy, final. Marcus looked around again, at the vendors, at the market, at the world that was no longer the same. "So, now," he said slowly. Her voice finished the sentence. "Now it is yours." The words settled into him, deep, permanent. The whispers returned, louder now, closer,
clearer. He turned sharply, and this time the figure did not disappear. It stood in front of him, close enough to see, not fully solid, but not invisible either. Something in between, something wrong. Marcus could not move. Every instinct told him to run, but his body refused. The figure stepped closer, slow, controlled, unhurried, and when it spoke, the air itself seemed to tighten. Everything has a cost. The voice was not loud, but it filled the space completely. Marcus tried to speak. Nothing came out. The figure tilted its head slightly. Your father delayed it. A pause. Then, you must complete it. Marcus felt something inside him crack. Not break, shift. Because in that moment, he understood. Not everything, but enough. This was never about money, never about missing numbers, never about mistakes. This was a ledger of something else entirely, something older, something patient, something that did not forget. The figure moved closer, close enough now that Marcus could feel the cold coming from it. Not temperature, presence. You have a choice, it said. Marcus's heart pounded, loud, violent, uncontrolled. What choice? He forced out. The figure did not rush. It never rushed, because it did not need to. You can pay. A pause. Or you can stay. The words hung in the air, heavy, final. Marcus swallowed hard. What happens if I stay? The figure did not smile, but something about it changed. You become part of what you see. Marcus turned slowly, looked at the vendors again, at their empty eyes, at their silent movements, at their existence without life, then back at the figure. And if I pay? The answer came without hesitation. You lose something you cannot replace. The market stood still around him, not frozen, waiting. Every sound muted, every movement slowed, as if the entire world had paused for his answer. Marcus stood in the center of it, breathing hard, thinking fast, feeling everything at once. Fear, anger, confusion, and something else. Choice. Real choice, for the first time since this began. And as the figure waited, as the market watched, as the silence deepened, Marcus realized something that changed everything. This was never about escape. It was about
Some debts are paid with money. Others are paid with your life. Marcus did not answer. Not immediately. The market held its breath around him, a place suspended between what was seen and what had always been hidden. The figure in front of him did not move. It did not need to. It waited with the patience of something that had never known urgency, something that had already outlived countless choices just like this one. Marcus felt his pulse in his throat, heavy and uneven. Every instinct inside him screamed to run, to turn and push through the crowd, to leave the market and never return. But the path he had tried before still sat behind him, unchanged, unmoving, as if it had already decided he did not belong to it anymore. He tried again. One step, then another. The ground shifted beneath him, not physically, but in a way that made forward feel impossible. The noise of the market stretched thin, as if distance had warped it. The voices dragged, the movement slowed, time itself resisted him. He stopped, breathing harder now. "This is not real," he said, though the words carried less conviction than before. The figure tilted its head slightly. "Reality does not change the debt," it replied. The words settled into him like weight. Marcus turned, forcing himself to move, to push through the nearest path between stalls.
He brushed past a vendor who did not react. Another stood frozen mid-motion, hand extended with a plate that no one was taking. A man laughed somewhere to the right, but the sound repeated again and again, like it was trapped in a loop it could not escape. Marcus kept moving, faster now. He reached the edge of the market, or what should have been the edge. Instead, there was more. Another row of stalls, another line of faces, another layer of noise. The market had stretched, grown, expanded beyond what it had ever been. He turned back sharply. The center looked further away now. The space had changed. The boundaries no longer made sense. He was inside it, and it was inside him. A whisper moved beside his ear, not from behind, not from ahead, from within the space itself. You cannot leave what you belong to. Marcus clenched his jaw. I don't belong to this, he said. The whisper did not argue. It did not need to, because something deeper inside him had already begun to understand. He stopped moving, closed his eyes for a moment, and for the first time since this began, he did not try to escape. He listened. The market was no longer just noise. It was layered. Voices beneath voices, movements beneath movements, something older beneath everything he had known. And within that, he felt it. A thread, connected, familiar. His father. The memory came suddenly, not as a clear image, but as fragments. A voice telling him to count carefully, hands guiding his own when he was younger, a warning he had not understood at the time. Some things you don't take, no matter how easy it looks. Marcus's chest tightened. Then why did you? He whispered. The answer did not come in words. It came in feeling, pressure, desperation, need. His father had not been careless. He had been pushed, cornered, forced into a decision that looked like survival at the time. And that decision had never been paid for, until now. Marcus opened his eyes. The figure stood where it had been, unmoved, unchanged, waiting. Why me? Marcus asked. The figure stepped closer. Because the ledger does not forget, and it does not forgive. A pause. It does not forgive. Marcus felt the anger rise then, sharp, sudden, real. My father made the deal, not me, he said. The figure did not react. Debt does not belong to one life, it said. It belongs to the line. The words cut deeper than fear because they carried truth, a truth Marcus could not deny even if he wanted to. He looked around again, at the vendors, at the ones who were still moving, still working, still existing, but no longer free. They chose to stay? He asked. They chose not to pay, the figure replied. Marcus's breathing slowed, not from calm, from clarity, because now the choice stood in front of him, fully formed, undeniable. Pay or remain, lose something or become something. He thought of his mother, of the nights he had counted every dollar just to keep life moving forward, of the exhaustion, of the discipline, of the belief that everything could be controlled if he worked hard enough. And now he understood. There were things that work could not fix, things that had already been set in motion long before he had a chance to choose. He looked at the ledger, still in his bag, still real, still tracking something he had never agreed to carry. Then he looked at the figure. What do I lose? He asked. The figure did not answer immediately. Then it said, what was taken must be returned. That's not an answer. It is the only answer that matters. Marcus felt the weight of that settle into him. This was not a negotiation. This was not something he could outthink or outmaneuver. This was a balance that had to be restored, and the cost would not be small. He closed his eyes again, just for a moment, and when he opened them, the fear had not disappeared, but it had changed. It had become something steadier, something decided. I'll pay, he said. The words did not echo, they did not shake the market, but they changed everything.
The figure stepped closer, close enough now that Marcus could feel the space around him tighten completely. Then it raised its hand, and for the first time, Marcus understood the cost, not in detail, but in truth. This was not about taking his life. It was about taking something deeper, something that defined him, something he could never replace. The air shifted, the market moved, the voices rose, then fell, and in a single silent moment, the payment was made. Marcus gasped, not from pain, but from absence. Something inside him was gone, not physically, not visibly, but undeniably. The market changed again. This time, it returned. The stalls looked normal. The vendors moved naturally. The noise sounded real again. The weight lifted. The presence faded. The figure was gone. Marcus stood alone, breathing hard, unsteady, but free. The ledger sat in his hand. He opened it slowly. The name was gone. The number beside it, gone. The pages returned to what they had always been. Simple, clear, ordinary. Marcus closed it, and for the first time since this began, he understood what had been taken. Not his life, not his future, but something he would feel the absence of for the rest of his days. He stepped away from the stall. The night felt lighter now, the air clearer, but he was not the same. He would never be the same. Days passed, then weeks. The market continued as it always had, busy, alive, unaware. Marcus returned to his work, to his routine, to his ledger. Everything looked normal. Everything functioned as it should, but something inside him remained different, quieter, lighter, and yet missing something he could not name. One night, long after the crowd had gone, Marcus sat behind his stall and opened the ledger again. He flipped through the pages slowly, carefully, then stopped. There was a new entry, clean, precise, written in a hand that was not his, a name. He stared at it, his chest tightening once more, not in fear this time, in understanding, because the truth had never changed. The debt had been paid, but the system remained. Marcus closed the ledger slowly. The night moved around him, unaware, unchanged, but he knew. And as he sat there, the final thought settled quietly into place. The ledger never forgets. It only waits.